How's it going, Chief? Come watching today with another video, and today, guys, what to bring to you is the Striker update. Now, I've been getting a lot of questions about this, and that's really fair because the deck itself has the most questions that come after a ban list, especially one like we just had. We had Anaconda banned, we had Meow Mew banned, we have Change of Heart to 1. There's a lot of big changes that the deck has seen already, and especially since the ban list, I feel like even my build has just been drastically different because even the hand trap lineup, like Bell, just seems really less important now because every deck runs Lost. It's on Despia, and we needed Bell to answer Prank Kid. It's just like how we needed a lot of back row to be able to answer IO, right? We needed Bell to be able to answer Prank Kid because that matchup was so abysmal for us. So like now we don't even have to play that card if we don't want to. So I think that's really cool, and it gives up a lot of space for you to be able to mitigate for your worst matchup. And I don't really even feel like Striker has a bad matchup right now. I think that Despia is definitely a fair matchup, but it's a grind, and that's something that you got to be prepared for. So going into Hartford, I think that the number one thing that I'm preparing for is playing against a lot of Despia. So that's where I would cater my main deck and my sideboard a little bit more to be able to deal with that matchup, just because I know that that's going to be the most prevalent one there. So without further ado, let's go right into all the discussion that we have today because there's a lot that we have to talk about. If you've not already been to the Imperium Duelist website, definitely go over there, check it out, use code GGYGO10, and let's hop right on into the video. So the first thing I want to talk about is going to be that Meow Mew ban. So we had a deck in the game that was very oppressive to our own, right? Playing Striker against Prank Kid was very, very hard. And again, we had to run Bell at some capacity because that's the best card that we had to answer this matchup. Especially going into your turn, you had like Bell plus Anchor on Griffin, right? And a lot of times that was just enough. Or if you had like Cosmic plus like an Anchor, there's some kind of combination that you had to open to be able to beat this deck. So yes, it was fairly hard, but I feel like that's what makes Striker feel a lot better moving into this format now because you have the ability to not have to worry about one matchup and cater your main deck specifically for that matchup. Now, the only reason I feel like I'm going to cater mine for Despia is because I just know I'm going to be playing against it a lot, so why not just make it easier on myself, right? So the next thing here is going to be talking about the Brave Engine. There's a lot of people who just sold their Brave Engine because they said that they'll never use it in Striker as long as Anaconda's banned. And I feel like that's kind of incorrect. I think that the Brave Engine is really good and you should reconsider using it. And we're going to be talking about that and why it's so good in one of my lists that I'll be showing today. I'm showing off 3 different lists today just so you have a variety. But I think that the Brave Engine really does put in a lot of work still in Striker. And we'll talk about that when we get to the list itself. Now, the last one here, we got Change of Heart back in the game. I think that this is particularly cool, but I don't think that it's important. I really don't think that it's that necessary to run Mind Control and Change of Heart. And most of my list, I will be cutting Mind Control and just playing Change of Heart because you can't trade all of your consistency for just playing a lot of hard go second cards. I feel like that is just not the way. I think that you have a maximum number of going second cards that you can play outside of just playing like general consistency and like Striker cards, right? Because at that point, like, if they put you going first at all and you have all these cards in your deck for going second and you have nothing, like not even like a booster or what have you, because I honestly, like, if I was told to run like Mind Control Change of Heart or like a booster Change of Heart, I would definitely just choose booster because at that point, like, you just want to make sure that you can still play the game even if you're forced to go first. So just be careful with running too many going second cards. But I think Change of Heart definitely takes Mind Control's spot, but I just think that this is just the one of that we're going to run instead of the Mind Control, to be completely honest. So moving on into the next thing that I want to mention here is going to be, what are the post-side threats? So Sword Soul, I think, is going to be the other deck that's going to give us a lot of problems at the events, and that's going to be because they sideboard Anti-Spell and Anti-Magic Arrows. These cards are really, really strong. The only other deck that's going to be running Anti-Spell is going to be either Rogue decks or like Eldritch in the main deck. Some will side it, but some will main it. So I really do think that both of these cards are going to be pretty impactful. I think that Anti-Magic Arrows is going to be way less, but I think that Anti-Spell alone is going to be pretty good as far as other people having it and expecting that they will have it. So you got to make sure that you are siding in like Cosmics or Twins, so you don't just auto lose to something like this in game 2 or 3, because that can really make or break the entire day, right? If you have an out for this. It's not quite IO, but it's still problematic enough that you have to run side outs at least and make sure that you're putting them in. But moving on from these two cards here, the other thing that I want to talk about is effective siding. So I've actually thought about main decking Nibiru because I feel like there's so many other rogue decks that are going to be relevant because of the ban list, especially like Salad, Sun Avalon because they just got Therian. We're going to be seeing things like Pendulum, Sword Soul. There's going to be a lot of decks that we're just going to be seeing all over the tournaments, especially at Hartford, right? So main decking Nibiru, as long as you're fine with having a couple dead cards against the Despia deck, I think that it's very smart at the moment, honestly, because I feel like a lot of people are going to play into it game one and they're just never going to see it coming. So when I talk about effective siding though, it's because I don't want you to lose to like an Evenly Match or a Lightning Storm because they're very much so in the format right now. Like people are playing those cards. So you want to make sure that you have things like Nibiru, Token Collector, D-Barrier, so that you don't have to commit cards to your board. So if they make you go first, you just go Shizuku, set D-Barrier, pass. Or like if you are forced to go first, you have like Nibiru, Token Collector in your deck, right? And so at that point, you're just like, okay, I'm not dead, because if they start committing to their board, like I don't have anything on board and they can't just evenly me, they probably sided in a lot of back row out, so that means that their hand is going to be a bit more bricked up with cards that won't even do anything for their combo. So there's a lot of different things you got to think about in that line, especially having cards like Nibiru and Token Collector right now. I feel like is going to be a really big surprise factor, especially on the rock. So just make sure that you have these cards somewhere in your sideboard. And if you are going to main the rock, then main the rock. But going like Shizuku, D-Barrier, pass, especially against Despia, is really solid. Because like the one thing that I want everyone to realize about Despia is that the deck isn't even that strong anymore. I feel like it has a lot of power, but the more solved that the deck gets, the easier it gets to beat, because it lost its surprise factor. And so we're going to talk about this in the deck list here in a moment, about why I feel like Despia became a lot easier to manage. And it's all about because of Mirror Jade and using its effect turn one. So let's hop right into that, actually. So let's go ahead and start with Therian Striker. So the number one thing that you're going to notice is that I have 3 Crow in my main deck, and it's going to be across the board 3 Crow in my main deck, because we have 2 Shark Cannon, we have 1 Call By, and triple Crow. If Despia uses Mirror Jade turn 1 to get the Branded in red, they might have a Masquerade and they might have a Stapelia. But like if they just have like one of those and a dead Mirror Jade on their board and they flip Branded in red and you crow it or you interact with their monster they have in the graveyard, there's not a whole lot that they're doing to you, especially because like Mirror Jade can't trigger again, so like you can freely just steal it. They don't really have much of a board. So I think that that's really important to talk about too, because like especially if it's a tragedy that they target with red and you crow their tragedy, if they don't have another one engraved to be able to banish and like reset a fusion, and they're strictly relying on like normal summon a Lubra to go off, they're in a really bad position. And so this is something where, again, going first against Despia, I think is even the better move post side, because a lot of them are just like waiting for you to go second and like put up an unsurmountable board, or they have things like Super Poly or what have you. But I just think that like it's so much better if you just go first against them, because I don't really think that there's a whole lot that they can do. Going second is still fine too. But if you are doing a go first build, I think that's equally just fine. The Therian cards, though, this is how I would run with those cards in the deck. I think that in Striker, the Therian cards really shouldn't be in the deck. I think that they're fairly bad. And for this reason, because think about it. You go turn 1 and you go Summon Ray. You go Kaina and then you go Shizuku. And then before you're allowed to go Regulus target Kaina in your graveyard, everyone's main decking Crow. If they just go Crow, target the Kaina before you activate Regulus, your Regulus is stuck in hand, and there's no way that you're linking off your Shizuku. The other thing, too, is that if you open up a Therian card and no ace, like our main problem has always been, just not opening an ace, you're not doing anything with those Therian cards, and they're also not stopping your opponent from going off. So it's definitely rough, and I feel like you could take out the Cosmics and main deck Prosperity if you really wanted to with this kind of a build, because you really got to make sure that you can see both of them. But I also just don't love Prosperity in Striker. So I wanted to make this list and at least show you a list that I think is fairly viable with Therian. But I think that when everyone's main decking Crow, it really does become alarming to play like the Therian cards, because if they see the Kaina in your grave and they Crow it, it's going to be a rough time. So just kind of keep that in the back of your mind, because going first is nice and having the Therian cards is nice, but at the same time, it's very easily preventable. And the extra deck as well, I have this card right here called Brute Enforcer. A lot of people probably don't know what this card is yet. It just came out in Ghost from the Past 2. I think this card's very good. So essentially, it's a dark attribute that points down left, down right. And I feel like it's really good because of the fact that this card alone really allows you to just discard a card, target a face-up card your opponent controls, and destroy it. And the only way that they can prevent it is sending another card of the same type from their hand to the grave. So if you target like Anti-Spell, they have to send another card from their hand to the grave to be able to stop it. If you can steal any other monster, or if you can like normal summon into this, you can go straight into Dark Charmer as well. This is also just really nice because it's not like where you have Phoenix and you can't like normal summon a Ace monster where you're like forced to go into like Zeke early on too. You can go like Kagari, whatever you need to do underneath the Brute Enforcer as well. And then go into maybe even like a Unicorn, so you don't have to waste out on like the Link 3 potential, right? So I think this is really nice for the deck. I think it's a really cool addition. But other than that, I don't really have a lot to say about Therian Striker. I think that this is the most optimal ratio, the 2 Regulus, the 3 Field Spell, and the 1 Terraforming. But other than that, I really don't feel like it's going to be that impactful into our metagame today. Going second with the Brave Engine, though. So this is something that I've been talking about, is that I really don't feel like people realize how good this really just still is. Because when you're playing the Brave Engine right now, there's a couple different ways that you can do this. So I've seen also with like set rotation, if anyone's playing that too, you can also like use set rotation if you're playing like Therian cards and like the Brave cards, and then you can set like the Therian field spell to your opponent's side of the board and give yourself like area 0, and then you can go ahead and use like Draco back and bounce the Therian field spell back to your hand. And that's really insane because it gives you more playability with your opponent, and you can even play like the Therian cards and have them be protected with your combo, right? And then if you are just playing like the regular Brave Engine 2, it gives you the spell count that you need to really still be able to break through a board, really be able to push through a board. You have the ability to use Draco back and Legal Knight to be able to bait out more cards. And then if you have an ace in hand, you can use your ace and let's say like the token, and then you can make Zeke and threaten a 3rd card out of your opponent's board, or even a 4th if you use 2 from the Legal Knight, right? So then what's cool about that is that even a Legal Knight itself is a dark attribute. So you can go straight into Dark Charmer even if you don't have an ace. So if you have token plus a Legal Knight, you just go straight into Dark Charmer with the imperm or negate your Legal Knight. And that way you at least get a chance to crash your dark into their monster, and then you can search Ray. So there's a lot of still really good application behind playing the Brave Engine. Again, if it's anything but spell count alone, I think that it's worth to run. Because the Illegal Knight alone is just really strong. Being able to go ahead and do Illegal Knight's effect and then Draco back Illegal Knight back to your hand. You can go ahead and do like summon a token if they put you going first, and you go Shizuku token, set 1 pass, and then whenever they commit to their board finally, you can summon a Legal Knight from your hand and then be able to threaten cards off their board already. So there's a lot of really cool application behind this that I think is really worth noting. The deck itself really just evolves with every format that we play in, right? So I think that it's really important to not just throw away the Brave cards. I think that playing them at 2 and 2 is really nice for the deck right now, especially because it doesn't make them a main focus. It just makes them another engine that we can utilize in the deck. Especially because like if you're already playing 2 Zeke anyway, you can just like go ahead and use like Fateful, even if you hard open it, to get to a token, summon an ace, and just make a quick Zeke too, to be able to bait anything that your opponent has. And again, it's just free spell count. The second that you get your monsters on the board, and the second the token hits the board, you're immediately getting a Draco back anyways to be able to force out an interruption. So I think that this is really solid. You're main decking the Crow already. You only have to sacrifice 1 Crow in your main deck to be able to run this. And then you still play like the 8 hand traps. You're playing the Brave package. You have Droplet. Like, it's still a very, very solid list moving forward. And this is something that I've very much so considered for playing at like the Hartford event. But I still have a couple of different theories that I have in mind that I got to test. But this is something that I think is still really powerful in this format. The next and final list that I have for you is the one that everyone's been waiting for, is what are you doing with Pure Blind Second Striker? So the way that I'm running Pure Blind Second right now is I am main decking evenly matched. So this is something that a lot of people have seen me say, just don't play evenly in Striker for a long time. And that's because high octane in the battle phase is very important. Evenly against Despia is crazy. This is something that I really enjoy for the deck, especially because like when we talk about branded in red and having like a dead Mirror Jade on board, whenever you evenly them, like they just realize at that point that they have to just rip it and then go for like another Mirror Jade or just leave the dead one on their board, right? Because if they commit more, then they're just going to lose unless they just branded red and add like an allure back to their hand. The evenly really just puts in a lot of work in these scenarios, and I feel like going into the main phase 2 as well, if you can force everything else out and then even slap a mine on the board, you realistically just win. But even like moving on from there too, being able to establish a board as well, really impactful. The other thing that you'll notice in this list is the fact that I have an Albion in my extra deck. So this goes back to the theory that we had back in Eternal format where we all main decked a copy of Dingirsu in our extra deck, because this was just too free not to run. If you stole a Galatea or if you Sharkin and Reborn a Galatea and then you made a Ding, it was just super free, because at that point you could just send whatever you wanted to, right? And that format was all about destruction and protection, so Ding Send was huge. So if you're playing against a lot of Despia and you know that you're going to play against a lot of Despia, if you change a heart, a Mirror Jade, if you reborn one off Shark Cannon, if you reborn one off Dark, like you have the ability to use their Mirror Jade against them. And I can tell you right now, no one's going to expect that. So that's something that I think is really impactful. Siding the Storms as well, I think that's really smart, especially for all the back row decks and all the rogue decks that we're going to be seeing. Also, a lot of Sword Soul players tend to leave a lot of their monsters in attack position. Now, I wouldn't bank on that, but this is something that you'll notice when you start playing in the format a lot more, is that when they have like Monk, the Sinister, the Berserker, and the Chi-Shao, a lot of times they just leave them in attack position. Sometimes they'll put like the Sinister in defense, but the other two have such low defense that like one Lightning Storm just blows out the Monk, the Chi-Shao, and the Berserker, which is pretty crazy. So I think that Lightning Storm alone is just a very cracked card right now. It's very, very good. But yeah, as you saw though, I have Crow at 3 in the main deck at all times right now. I'm also main decking double Desires in this deck. Desires at 2 feels nice, let me tell you. It is a good time. So it's something that I definitely recommend playing, especially if you tend to blind second or you want to blind second. You've just got to play Desires. The free +1 is too good. So I do hope that you enjoyed this video today, because again, there's been a lot of updates to Striker and a lot of theory behind the deck as of late, because especially with the ban list that just came out, there's a lot to talk about. So if you want to join the Discord, the Twitch, the Twitter community, definitely go ahead and do that. All the links are in the description below, and if you want a session on Metafy, definitely be sure to go over to the website and check that out as well. We are almost at 12,000 subscribers, and I'm sure once this video is posted, we'll be there. I just want to give a quick shout out to you all, because I love you all, and the fact that we're here right now is just so fantastic. And a lot of you have been here for the whole time, and even a lot of you who are just now coming into the channel, you know, I appreciate each and every one of you, because being able to do this every day is something that I just, you know, I don't have words for it. It's something that I just really genuinely enjoy doing, and I thank you all for that. So I hope that everyone has a great day, and I'll catch you all on the next one. Thank you.